I had been cleaning the house when I found it. It was a letter hidden deep inside the drawer of my husband's desk. I never expected to find anything like this. Sam and I have been married for 7 years. We have a simple life. We don't have many things, but we have always been happy. At least that's what I thought. It was a normal afternoon. I was going through the house, doing my usual cleaning. I went into Sam's office to pick up the papers lying around. He's always busy with work, and he often leaves his things in a mess. I didn't mind. I was used to it. I opened the drawer of his desk to put some papers inside when something unusual caught my eye. A piece of paper. It wasn't just any paper. It was a letter. I pulled it out, thinking it was just another bill or work-related letter. But when I looked at it closely, I saw that it was not addressed to me. The letter was addressed to Sam. I froze. I didn't know who could be writing to him like this. It wasn't a letter from work or a friend. It was personal. The handwriting was neat, but the words seemed strange. I opened it slowly, my heart beating faster with each movement. As I read the first few lines, my eyes began to widen in shock. The letter spoke of feelings I didn't understand. It was full of love, passion, and dates I didn't know. The writer described their relationship with Sam, how they had met, how they felt about each other. It was clear that this was more than just a friendship. This was something deep, something that I had no idea about. I felt a rush of emotions: confusion, anger, hurt. I couldn't believe what I was reading. How could Sim have hidden this from me? How could he have been seeing someone else without telling me? I thought we were happy. I thought we shared everything. But now, this letter told me something different. I looked at the letter again, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone had written it by accident. But as I read through it again, I knew this wasn't a mistake. The letter spoke in detail about things only someone close to Sam could know. The letter was real. My husband was hiding something from me. I stood there, holding the letter, unable to move. My mind was racing. What should I do? Should I confront Sam right now? Should I ask him about it? But what if he denies it? What if he says it's not true? I didn't know what to think or feel. I only knew one thing for sure. This letter changed everything. I put the letter back in the drawer quickly and closed it. I tried to act normal. I went back to cleaning, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. My hands were shaking, and my heart was heavy. Sam had been acting strange lately, but I never thought it could be something like this. Could he really be seeing someone else? That night, when Sam came home from work, I felt different. I tried to smile and act like everything was fine, but I couldn't. I looked at him and felt a distance between us that I hadn't felt before. He didn't notice, of course. He never does. We ate dinner in silence. He talked about his day at work, but I didn't hear him. All I could think about was the letter. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, my mind spinning with thoughts. The letter wouldn't leave my head. I kept thinking about the things it said, the places they had been, the promises Sam had made. I wanted to believe that it wasn't true, but something inside me knew it was. I thought about going through Sam's things again. I wanted more proof, but I didn't know if I could handle it. What if I found more letters? What if I found something worse? But then I realized that I couldn't just ignore this. I had to know the truth. I had to find out what was really going on. The next day, I went into Sam's office again. This time, I didn't just clean. I searched. I opened his drawers carefully, one by one. I was looking for more clues, more signs that the letter wasn't a mistake. I opened the drawer where I had found the first letter, and to my surprise, I found another one. It was tucked underneath some papers, as if Sam had tried to hide it. This time, the letter was different. It was not just about love. It was about their secret meetings, about the places Sam had been. It was clear that the affair had been going on for a long time. My hands trembled as I read the letter. The words jumped off the page, each one piercing my heart. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I felt trapped. I had to know more, but I wasn't sure I could take it. The pain of reading this letter was too much, but I had to keep going. There was no turning back now. I stood there, holding the letter, not knowing what to do. I had all the evidence I needed, but I still didn't know how to face Sam. I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but I couldn't. I was scared, scared of what I would hear, scared of what would happen next. I walked slowly back to the living room, my heart heavy with the truth. I didn't know what to do with this information. Should I confront Sam now? Or should I wait? The thought of facing him terrified me, but I knew I couldn't live with this secret any longer. The truth was out there, and I had to know what it meant for us. As I sat down, I held the letters in my hands, feeling the weight of the situation on my shoulders. The questions in my mind grew louder. Why had Sam kept this secret from me? How long had this affair been going on? What did this mean for our future? I didn't have answers, only more questions. The only thing I knew for sure was that everything was about to change. The next few days were filled with tension. I didn't know what to do with the letters. Part of me wanted to forget everything, to pretend like nothing had happened. But I couldn't. The letters were burned into my mind, and I couldn't stop thinking about them. Every time I looked at Sam, I felt a knot in my stomach. I felt angry, confused, and hurt. I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. I thought about confronting him, but every time I tried, I couldn't find the words. I wanted to ask him about the letters, to ask if he was having an affair, but I didn't know how. What if he denied it? What if he said I was wrong? I didn't know if I could handle that. I wasn't ready to hear him lie to my face. I kept the letters hidden in a drawer, the same place I had found them. Every day, I would look at them, but I never showed them to Sam. I wasn't sure if I wanted him to know that I knew. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face the truth. The days passed, and I tried to act normal. I went about my usual routine, cooking, cleaning, and going to work. But inside, everything felt different. I felt like I was living in a world of lies. Every time Sam left the house, I wondered where he was going. Was he meeting her? Was he with his lover? I started paying more attention to his actions. I noticed when he was being secretive or when he seemed distant. I began to question everything he did. One evening after work, Sam came home late. I noticed that he seemed tired but I didn't ask about it. He sat down to eat dinner with me, but he didn't seem interested in talking. I couldn't help but feel that something was wrong. I wonder if he knew that I knew about the letters. Maybe he was trying to hide it from me. I looked at him, trying to read his face, but he looked calm, as if nothing was wrong. As the days went on, I started to feel more and more disconnected from Sam. We used to talk about everything, but now there was a wall between us. I tried to start conversations, but he would answer briefly and turn away. I didn't know if he was just tired or if he was avoiding me. It made me feel even more alone. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something from me. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was just imagining things. But then one day, I found something else. It wasn't a letter this time, but a small note. It was hidden in Sam's jacket pocket. I almost didn't see it, but when I picked it up, my heart sank. It was a short message from the same woman who had written the letters. She mentioned a place where they would meet. She asked him to come again, saying she missed him. My hands shook as I read it. The note was so simple, but it felt like a punch in the stomach. I felt sick. Everything I had been feeling, all the doubt and confusion, suddenly became clear. Sam was having an affair. There was no more doubt. The letters, the notes, the strange behavior, it was all true. I wanted to scream, to cry, but I couldn't. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I didn't know what to do. I had all the proof I needed, but I still wasn't ready to confront Sam. I didn't know if I could handle the truth. What if he told me that he loved her? What if he said that he wanted to be with her instead of me? The thought made my chest tighten. I didn't know if I could survive hearing that. That night, I stayed awake for hours, lying in bed with the note in my hand. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wondered how long this had been going on. Was it a recent affair, or had it been going on for months? I thought back to the times when Sam seemed distant, when he would leave the house for hours, or when he would come home late. I wondered if those were the times he was seeing her. I wondered if he had been lying to me all along. I felt like I was losing my mind. I wanted to talk to someone, but I didn't know who. I couldn't talk to my friends because I didn't want them to judge Sam. I didn't want anyone to know what was happening in my marriage. I felt embarrassed and ashamed. It was as if my whole world had fallen apart and I didn't know how to fix it. The next day, I decided to do something I had been avoiding. I decided to confront Sam. I couldn't live with the secrets anymore. I couldn't pretend like everything was okay. But I still didn't know how to start the conversation. What should I say? How could I ask him about the affair without breaking down? The thought of hearing him deny it again made my stomach turn. I spent the whole day thinking about it. I went through every possible way the conversation could go in my mind. I imagined him denying everything, telling me that I was just being paranoid. I imagined him getting angry, telling me that I had no right to question him. I imagined him leaving me for her, and that thought hurt the most. By the time Sam came home, I was a mess of emotions. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I was strong enough to face him and ask him about the affair. But I knew I had to. I couldn't go on like this, living in fear and doubt. When he walked through the door, I felt my heart race. I wanted to speak, but the words were stuck in my throat. I watched him, trying to read his face, trying to see if he knew what I had found. But he looked normal, as if nothing had changed. I felt like I was drowning in silence. I didn't know how much longer I could keep this secret inside me. Finally, I took a deep breath. I knew that I had to ask him. It was the only way to find out the truth. I had to know what was really happening. I had to know if Sam was still the man I married, or if he was someone else entirely. The next few days felt like they lasted forever. My heart was heavy with the truth, but I still couldn't bring myself to ask Sam about it. Every time I looked at him, my chest tightened. He seemed normal, like everything was fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I didn't know how much longer I could pretend everything was okay. I couldn't stop thinking about the letters and the note. They were always in my mind, like a constant whisper reminding me of the betrayal. Every time Sam left the house, I wondered where he was going. Was he meeting her? Was he lying to me again? I kept asking myself these questions, but I didn't have any answers. I started to feel like a stranger in my own home. The love and trust one had for Sam were slipping away piece by piece. I knew that I couldn't go on like this. I had to face him. I had to ask him the questions that had been haunting me, but I was scared. I didn't know if I was ready to hear the truth. What if he told me that he loved her? What if he said that he didn't care about me anymore? I was terrified of losing him, but I was also terrified of living in this lie. One evening, after dinner, I decided that I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront him. I had been keeping all my emotions inside for so long, and it was starting to eat away at me. I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't live with the doubt. I stood in front of Sam, my heart racing, my hands shaking. I looked at him, trying to gather the courage to ask the question that had been on my mind for so long. It was hard to speak. My voice felt stuck in my throat, but I knew I had to say something. I couldn't keep silent anymore. I started to talk, but the words didn't come out right. I felt like I was choking on them. I wanted to ask him if he was seeing someone else, if he was hiding an affair, but I didn't know how to say it. It felt like the world was closing in on me. I wanted to shout, to scream, but all I could do was stand there, shaking. Sam looked at me, confused. He didn't know what was happening inside me. He didn't know that I had found the letters, the note, that I knew everything. He just looked at me, waiting for me to speak. I took a deep breath and tried again. Sam, I said quietly, are you hiding something from me? The question hung in the air, thick with the weight of everything I had been feeling. I looked at him, searching his face for any sign of guilt, any sign that he knew what I was talking about. But his expression was calm, too calm. He didn't seem worried or surprised. He just looked at me like he always did. No, he said, his voice steady. What do you mean? I'm not hiding anything. But I could hear the lie in his voice. I could feel it in my bones. He was lying to me. I could see it in his eyes. I knew that he was hiding something, and that something was tearing me apart. I felt a wave of anger rise in me. How could he lie to me like this? How could he look me in the eye and deny everything? I wanted to scream, to tell him that I knew the truth, but I didn't. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I just stood there, frozen, unable to speak. Sam looked at me for a long moment, waiting for me to say something else, but I couldn't find the words. I didn't know what to say anymore. I had all the evidence in front of me, but I didn't know how to make him admit it. I didn't know how to get the truth out of him. I turned away, feeling defeated. I had to leave the room. I couldn't look at him any longer. I walked out of the living room and into the kitchen, trying to calm myself down. I didn't want to cry, but my eyes were filled with tears. How had it come to this? How had my marriage turned into this? I didn't know what to believe anymore. The man I had loved, the man I had trusted, was hiding something from me, and I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. I stayed in the kitchen for a long time, trying to pull myself together. I could hear Sam moving around in the other room, but I couldn't bring myself to go back to him. I felt like I was falling apart, and I didn't know how to put myself back together. Eventually, Sam came into the kitchen. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, watching me. I couldn't look at him. I didn't want to see his face. I didn't want to hear any more lies. Finally, he spoke. I don't know what you think is happening, but I'm not hiding anything. You're just imagining things. You're overreacting. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was still lying. He was still trying to make me believe that everything was fine. But I knew better. I had the letters. I had the note. I knew the truth. I turned to him, my voice shaking. I'm not imagining anything, Sam. I know about the letters. I know about the other woman. You can't lie to me anymore. His face went pale. For a moment, he didn't say anything. I could see the fear in his eyes. I could see that he was caught, that he knew I knew the truth. But instead of apologizing, instead of admitting what he had done, he just stood there. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to fix it. I felt a deep sadness wash over me. I had always believed that Sam loved me. I had always believed that we were a team, that we could face anything together. But now, I wasn't sure if I could trust him anymore. I wasn't sure if our marriage could survive this. I don't know what to do anymore, I whispered. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. Sam didn't answer. He just stood there looking at me. The silence between us was thick with the weight of everything that had happened. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew that nothing would ever be the same. The next few days felt like they lasted forever. Sam didn't say much after I confronted him. He seemed to be avoiding me, and I didn't know how to handle it. I was filled with so many emotions. There was anger, confusion, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to understand how this had happened. How could Sam, the man I loved, the man I trusted, betray me like this? I kept asking myself questions. Was this my fault? Had I done something wrong? But I knew the answer. It wasn't my fault. I had done nothing to deserve this. Sam was the one who had lied to me. He was the one who had kept secrets. I tried to remember the good times we had shared, the love we once had. But it all felt so far away now. I spent a lot of time alone in the house, thinking about what to do next. I didn't want to leave Sam. I didn't want to break our marriage, but at the same time, I didn't know how to forgive him. I couldn't forget what he had done. The hurt was too deep. I tried to talk to him again, but every time I started, the words felt stuck. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I wanted to hear what he would say. Would he tell me that he was sorry? Or would he try to explain away his actions again? I wasn't sure if I could trust him anymore. The silence between us was heavy. It felt like we were living in two different worlds. I was filled with doubt and pain, but Sam seemed distant, like he was trying to hide from everything. I felt so alone. I missed the closeness we used to have, the way we used to talk and share our thoughts. But now it felt like that was all gone. I didn't know how to fix things. Days turned into weeks, and still nothing changed. Sam didn't speak about the affair. He didn't apologize or explain himself. He just kept going about his day like nothing had happened. It made me feel even worse. Was this how he really felt? Did he not care about me at all? Or was he just too ashamed to face the truth? I started to think about what my life would be like without Sam. The idea of living without him was painful, but at the same time, I couldn't continue living like this. I couldn't live in this lie. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I felt like a stranger to the man I loved. One day, I decided to go out. I needed to clear my head. I took a walk in the park, hoping that being outside would help me think. The fresh air was a small comfort, but it didn't make the pain go away. As I walked, I thought about everything that had happened. I thought about the love we once shared, the dreams we had for the future, and how everything had changed. I realized that I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. I had to make a decision. I had to choose whether to stay with Sam and try to fix things, or to let go and move on. It wasn't an easy choice. I loved Sam, but I also loved myself, and I couldn't continue living in this hurt and confusion. The next few days were filled with more silence. Sam and I barely spoke. Every time I looked at him, I felt a knot in my stomach. It was clear that we were no longer the couple we used to be. We were two people living in the same house, but with no connection. I couldn't keep living like this. It was making me miserable. Finally, I made a decision. I couldn't stay in this marriage if there was no trust. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. I had to talk to Sam. I had to tell him what I was feeling. I had to tell him what I was thinking. I waited for the right moment. Sam came home one evening, and we both sat in silence. I could feel the tension in the air. It was heavy, and I knew that something had to change. I couldn't keep living like this. I took a deep breath and looked at him. Sam, I said quietly, I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not. I don't know if I can forgive you for what you've done. I don't know if I can stay in a marriage where I don't trust you. Sam didn't say anything. He just looked at me, his face unreadable. I didn't know what he was thinking. I didn't know if he was sorry or if he was just angry that I was confronting him again. I don't know if I can keep living in this pain, I continued. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't keep pretending that everything is okay. I need you to be honest with me, Sam. I need to know if there is any hope for us." There was a long silence. Sam didn't say anything for what felt like an eternity. He just sat there, looking at me. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I knew that I couldn't keep going on like this. I needed answers. I needed to know if he was going to fight for our marriage or if he was going to let it go. Finally, Sam spoke, but his words didn't bring me the relief I was hoping for. "I don't know what to say," he said quietly. "I don't know if I can fix this. I don't know if I can make things right." His words stung. They weren't the words I wanted to hear. I wanted him to tell me that he was sorry, that he would do anything to fix what he had broken. But instead, he was saying that he didn't know if it could be fixed. That hurt more than anything. It was like he was giving up on us, on our marriage. I stood up, feeling a wave of sadness wash over me. I didn't know what to do anymore. It felt like there was no way forward. The love I had for Sam was still there, but the trust was gone. And without trust, I didn't know if we could ever be happy again. As I walked away, I knew that I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep living in this uncertainty. I had to decide what was best for me, for my future. And I wasn't sure if Sam was part of that future anymore. The days after my conversation with Sam were the hardest of my life. It felt like I was standing at a crossroads, not knowing which way to go. I spent a lot of time alone thinking about everything that had happened. My heart was broken, but I couldn't ignore the fact that something inside me had changed. I didn't feel the same way about Sam anymore. The trust we had was gone, and I didn't know if it could ever come back. I wanted to believe that things could be fixed, that our marriage could survive this. But every time I looked at Sam, I saw the man who had lied to me, who had betrayed me, and I didn't know if I could ever forget that. I thought about leaving, about starting over, but the thought of being alone was terrifying. I had spent so many years with Sam, and the idea of being without him felt like a huge loss. I couldn't stop thinking about the life I had with him. The good times, the love we had shared, all seemed so distant now. I remembered the first time we met, the first time he held my hand, the way he made me feel like I was the only person in the world. But now, all those memories were clouded by the lies and betrayal. I didn't know who Sam really was anymore. I spent a lot of time talking to my friends, trying to figure out what to do. They all had different opinions. Some told me to leave him, to find a better life without him. Others said I should try to forgive him, that people make mistakes, and we all deserve a second chance. But I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know if I was strong enough to forgive him or if I should let go of the relationship and move on. One day, I decided that I needed to take control of my life. I couldn't keep waiting for Sam to change. I couldn't keep living in a relationship where I felt like I was always questioning everything. I had to make a decision for myself. I spent hours thinking about what I wanted. I thought about my future, about the kind of life I wanted to live. I wanted to be happy, to feel safe and loved again. I wanted to trust the person I was with, and I didn't feel like I could do that with Sam anymore. So I made the decision. I would leave him. I would start a new chapter in my life. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I had to put myself first. I had to find happiness again. The next day, I packed my things. I didn't say anything to Sam. I couldn't. It was too hard. I knew that if I spoke to him, I might change my mind, but I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to stay in a marriage that was based on lies and broken trust. I left the house and went to stay with a friend for a while. I didn't know where my life would go from here, but I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. I was scared, but I knew it was the right choice. In the days that followed, Sam tried to contact me. He called, he sent messages, but I didn't respond. I needed space. I needed time to figure out who I was without him. I didn't want to be hurt anymore. I needed to heal. At first, it was hard to be alone. I miss Sam in some ways. I miss the life we had, the good moments, but I also realized that I was better off without him. I wasn't sure if I would ever trust him again, but I knew that I couldn't keep living in a relationship that made me feel so empty. After a few weeks, I started to feel stronger. I found a new sense of independence that I hadn't known before. I started to focus on myself, on my own happiness. I took up new hobbies, spent more time with my friends, and slowly began to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy, but I knew I was doing the right thing. One day, Sam came to visit me. He looked different. He seemed tired, sad. I could see that he was hurting, but I didn't feel sorry for him. I had been the one who was hurt, the one who had suffered. I couldn't just forget everything because he was sad. He apologized, said he was sorry for what he had done, that he had made a huge mistake. But I didn't know if I could believe him. He had lied to me for so long. How could I trust him again? How could I go back to the way things were after everything that had happened? I didn't answer him right away. I needed to think. I needed to feel sure of my decision. I didn't want to rush back into something that might hurt me again. I wasn't sure if I could forgive him, if I could ever trust him again. But as he stood there, I realized that I wasn't the same person I had been before. I had changed. I had learned to stand up for myself, to put my own needs first. I knew that if I took him back, I would be doing it for the wrong reasons. I would be doing it out of fear, out of loneliness, not out of love. So I told him that I needed more time. I wasn't ready to forgive him, and I wasn't ready to go back to him. He left quietly, and I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to give him a second chance, but another part of me knew that I needed to be strong and keep moving forward. The next few days were filled with reflection. I thought a lot about what Sam had said about his apology, but deep down, I knew that I couldn't go back. I had taken control of my life, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. I wasn't sure what the future would hold, but I knew that I was stronger now. I had taken the first step towards healing, and that was the most important thing. I was learning to live without Sam, and I was starting to see that there was a future for me, a future that didn't include him. As I looked ahead, I realized that this was just the beginning. My journey was far from over, but I was no longer afraid. I knew that I had the strength to face whatever came next. And no matter what happened, I was going to be okay. I was going to be happy again. The weeks after I made my decision felt like a long journey. There were many days when I felt uncertain, scared, and even sad, but deep down, I knew I was doing the right thing. Every day, I woke up with a sense of freedom. I no longer had to worry about Sam's lies, about the pain he caused me. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe without feeling trapped. But there were still moments when I missed him. I missed the way he used to make me laugh, the way we used to talk for hours about anything and everything. Sometimes, when I was alone, I would remember the good times, the love we had shared. But then I would remind myself why I left. I couldn't stay in a relationship where I didn't feel valued, where I couldn't trust the person I loved. I had to let go of the past, even though it was difficult. One day, I decided to go for a walk in the park. I had been staying in my friend's house for a few weeks, but I needed to clear my mind. I needed to think about the future. I had been focused on my pain for so long that I had forgotten to think about what was next for me. What did I want out of life now? What kind of person did I want to become? As I walked through the park, I realized how much I had changed. I had grown stronger. I had learned to stand up for myself. I had learned that my happiness mattered and that I couldn't let anyone take that away from me. For so long, I had allowed Sam's actions to control my life, but now I was in control. I was learning to find happiness within myself. I sat on a bench by a small pond, watching the ducks swim in the water. It was a peaceful moment, and for the first time in a long time, I felt calm. I didn't have to worry about Sam or his mistakes. I didn't have to worry about what would happen next. I could just be in the moment, enjoying the peace I had found. As the days passed, I started to feel more and more at peace with my decision. I began to focus on myself again. I went back to work and I spent time with my friends. I even started a new hobby. I had always wanted to learn how to paint, but I never had the time. Now I was making the time. It felt good to do something just for me, something that made me feel proud. But as I moved forward, I couldn't forget Sam completely. He had been a big part of my life for many years, and it wasn't easy to just erase him from my heart. I wondered what he was doing, if he had learned anything from what happened. I didn't know if he was truly sorry or if he was just sad because he had lost me. But I couldn't focus on that anymore. I had to focus on myself, on my future. One evening, I decided to visit my old house. It was a strange feeling walking through the door again after so many weeks. The house felt different now. It didn't feel like home anymore. I looked around at the familiar rooms, but it all seemed distant. Everything reminded me of the life I had with Sam, but it also reminded me of why I left. I went to the living room and sat on the couch. I looked at the pictures on the wall, the ones of Sam and me, smiling together. It was hard to look at them, but I knew it was part of moving on. I needed to face the past in order to move forward. I couldn't run from it forever. As I sat there, I realized how much I had grown. I had taken control of my life. I had made a difficult decision, but it was the right one. I had learned to let go of what wasn't good for me, and I had started to build a new life. I knew that I would never forget Sam, but I also knew that I couldn't let his actions define my future. The next few days passed slowly. I spent my time doing things I loved, things that made me happy. I felt like I was finally becoming the person I wanted to be. I was no longer a wife trapped in a broken marriage. I was just me, learning to live and grow on my own. Then one afternoon, I got a message from Sam. It had been a while since he had contacted me, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear from him, but I decided to read it. The message was simple. He apologized again for what he had done, for the pain he had caused me. He said he missed me and wished things could be different. At first, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. It was hard to read his words. I wanted to feel angry, but instead, I felt sad. Sad for what we had lost, sad for the life we could never have again. I knew that Sam was sorry, but I also knew that I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't put myself in a position where I might get hurt again. I thought about it for a long time. I didn't want to hurt him, but I also couldn't go back to him. I had to protect myself. I had to keep moving forward. I had to keep living the life I was building for myself, a life without him. So I sent him a short message back. I thanked him for his apology, but I told him that I had to keep moving forward. I told him that I had learned to let go and that I couldn't go back to the past. I wished him the best, but I knew that I couldn't be a part of his life anymore. After I sent the message, I felt a sense of relief. I knew that I had made the right decision. I had let go of the past, and now I was free to live my life the way I wanted. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments when I thought about Sam and what we had lost, but I also knew that I was stronger now. I had taken control of my life. I had made the difficult choice to leave, and I had started to rebuild my life. As the months passed, I continued to focus on myself. I was proud of how far I had come. I had learned to let go of the hurt and the anger. I had learned to forgive myself for staying in a bad relationship for so long. And most importantly, I had learned that my happiness was up to me. I was in control of my life now. Looking back, I realized that everything had happened for a reason. Sam's betrayal had changed me, but it had also helped me become the person I was meant to be. I had found my strength, and now I was ready to face whatever came next. And whatever the future held, I knew that I would be okay. I had learned to trust myself, and that was the most important lesson of all.